Hey guys, Kevin here with etrailer, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install the SoftStartRV Soft Start for 2 AC setup here on our 2021 Keystone Raptor 5th wheel toy hauler. As many of you already know, when your AC starts up, it has a huge wattage draw, and what that can do is whenever you're at a campsite and there's a bunch of other people that are all having their AC kick on at the same time, it can kind of overload the campground's electrical systems, and then you can have stuff start to dim in your camper. Maybe your AC doesn't want to fully kick on. It can actually end up damaging your AC, messing up your compressor, and it's going to cause a whole bunch of racket because your AC is really trying to work hard and it's just not getting the energy that it needs. So that's where these soft starts come into play, because what they're going to do is they're going to store energy in them so that you don't have to solely rely on that shore power to start your AC. For our neighbor today, he wanted to add on a third AC unit, which I've already installed back in our toy hauler section of our trailer. And with all of that being on a 50 amp service, it can be quite a bit much of a starting draw if all 3 ACs are kicking on at the same time. So that's why we went ahead and installed the 2-piece soft start kit for both our middle and our front AC, just so that when he does have those kick on, he doesn't have to worry about it trying to pull too much and blow a circuit or have any issues with anything else. I mean, he's got full-size fridge in here, just like you'd see in your home. He's got all kinds of other electronics that are going to be in use while he's camping, so we don't want to diminish that to where he's not going to be able to have everything fully function. And on top of that, it's going to make this kick on a lot quieter. So instead of it rattling, making a bunch of noise in the middle of the night every time it's starting to kick on, it's just going to quietly power on and do its job and then shut back off once temperature is reached. As far as installation goes, it is really simple, but it can be confusing if you don't really work with wiring quite a bit. And also it can be a little bit dangerous just because you're going to be up on the roof of your trailer. So you're going to want to make sure that you take all the necessary safety precautions that you can to make sure that there's no chance of you falling off of that trailer. And then also you're going to want to really look for that panel that we will talk about during the installation that's going to show you the model number so that you can find the correct wiring diagram. And then you're going to want to make sure that you can identify all of the capacitors that are already installed on your AC units so that you properly replace each of those wires when you're adding in your soft start. So right now I've got our rear AC running and our front AC running. I'm going to go ahead and turn on our main living area, and you can see just how quiet this comes on instead of rattling. So just like that, no big shaking. A lot of times, especially when you're running on a generator, it'll really start to kind of rattle up on the roof because it's really trying hard to kick on. Whereas with these soft starts, you hear just a kind of like, almost sounds like a screw gun starting up, just real faintly, and then AC kicked right on. Which, another thing along with the generators, since we're dropping that starting wattage down by using these soft starts, you won't have to use as heavy duty of a generator. Our trailer today has a onboard generator. It's heavy duty enough for all 3 of these, but it's not going to have to work as hard. It's not going to consume as much gas, so it's going to end up saving our customer a whole lot more money over time. First step in our installation is going to be removing our cover. On our Coleman mock here, you can see there's going to be 2 screws on the back of it and then 2 screws up top. So I want to remove those and hang on to them. Once you have all those screws out, you can go ahead and pop up your cover. On this one, it does make it easier if you kind of pull each side evenly up. We'll set that aside. Now there's going to be a model number, and that is going to tell you exactly which wiring diagram that you need to use. If you look at SoftStartRV's website, there's a gigantic list of different model numbers with all different instructions. On this specific one, I've already found where that's hidden. It's going to be on this little panel right here. So we're going to pop out these screws. And this top one. That's going to drop this panel out, and we're going to see all of our capacitors. So right here is a little wiring diagram for the capacitors, and in the bottom left corner there you can see the model number, and that's 1976-740. So we'll take that number and we'll go to SoftStartRV's website and pull up the correct wiring diagram. To make things easier, I'm also going to remove the 3 other screws that are in this top panel just so I can pull it up and look down inside of here and get better access to make things easier. For those of you who don't regularly deal with this, it can be a little bit confusing looking at this. So if we look right here, we have a little circle with a rectangle coming off of it. That's our PTCR, and that is this little capacitor right here. An easy way to kind of tell exactly what's what is to look at what color wires are running which way. But you can see that this is our start capacitor. Up here is going to be our run capacitor. And then over here is going to be the capacitor for our fan. So our soft start has to be mounted vertical because they don't want any water getting up into the actual box itself. This box is resin coated inside, so there's no reason for you to ever open this up. You're not going to be able to get to any components inside of it. If you ever had an issue, it was damaged, doesn't work anymore, then you just have to fully replace it. There is no repairing this. With our setup today on this specific model, it is a little challenging to try and find a good spot for it. But I've already done one like this before, so what I'm going to do is mount it over here. On the back side of it, it does have double-sided tape. We'll pull off that backing to it, put it on here, and then use the self-tapping screws to fully mount it in place, just because all we have over here is styrofoam. I've already looked inside of this. There's no chance of me accidentally hitting the fan blades here at all, so we don't have to worry about that. And then we're going to route our wires over to our section right here, just because all those fan capacitors are enclosed. Some models you'll kind of see is a little bit more open and easily accessible. This one's just real tight. Like I said, we'll just peel off that backing. I'm going to press that on there real good and shoot in some self-tappers. Now we can go ahead and just route our wiring over. Let's sneak it past our compressor here. And then we can start making our connections. So because I didn't want to peel off this sealant right here and try and trace my wires through there, I've just gone ahead and drilled a hole. So I just started with a small drill bit just because this is such a tight enclosed area, and just kind of kept getting wider and wider. If you do this and you have that line for your compressor right in the way, you definitely want to be especially careful. If you nick that at all, your whole AC system is going to be trash because you can't replace this. From there, we're going to go ahead, we're going to grab our blue wire and we'll pass it through our hole. And then I'm going to take some needle nose pliers and I'm going to pull off this white wire. I'm going to make sure that we note exactly where that's placed, because we will be putting another wire in its place in just a second. But we'll pull that back. And in your kit, there are going to be a bunch of different terminals. So there'll be spade terminals that you can swap that on with. But I'm just going to go ahead and cut this off and use a butt connector. Then I don't ever have to worry about the connection not being good enough between these two wires. So I'm going to stick my butt connector on my blue wire. And we'll crimp that down and do the same with our white. And since this is enclosed, I'm just using a regular butt connector, but if you were worried about any water getting into there, you could definitely go ahead and use a heat shrink butt connector and shrink that down with a heat gun. But we'll just push that back in place, and then we're going to sneak our black wire into here, and we can use one of the spade terminals in our little kit here. We'll just crimp that right on. And now you don't want to go too far into that, so you may want to cut the wire back just a bit. They give you a little extra because if we have the wire sticking all the way out like that, it's going to prevent the spade terminal from actually clipping on there. So I am going to snip that back just a tiny bit. And crimp her down. And we're going to stick this right where that white wire was. You may need to use your needle nose. It's a little tight, trying to get your hands in there. There we go. Next, we're going to take another spade connector, put it on our yellow wire, and crimp it down, and we're going to stick it onto our run capacitor. where you see the 2 red wires. There may only be 1 red wire, but with our specific model there is 2, and we're going to pull the one off that runs to our PTCR. But for right now, we'll just get that yellow wire in place. All right, so when we're looking at this, we're going to have 1 wire that runs over to our PTCR and then 1 that runs out to the fan. So we'll pull the PTCR one off, and then we'll just use some electrical tape and let it sit in there. So now we're going to go ahead, we're going to take a 7/16 socket, and we're going to take this nut off on our cap on our compressor. You can just pull that right off. And then this black wire that's running up to our compressor, we're going to pull that off. It's on there pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and take some needle nose. Try and get that off. There we go. And we're going to connect that to our black wire. So they tell you to just use one of the little spade connectors because we have male and female style. So you could just go ahead and take one of those and hook it up to your red and stick it in. But honestly, I don't really like that connection. I'm going to go ahead and just use a heat shrink butt connector just because this is kind of sitting outside and you don't really want to get anything wet because that cover really doesn't protect as well as it should. So we'll go ahead and peel back that a little bit. Grab a butt connector and we'll crimp that on. And we'll stick in our red wire. And then we can use our heat gun to shrink that down. All right, so I've got that shrunk down and I'm crimping on another spade terminal onto my brown wire. We're gonna kind of have to bend this just a little bit because this cap that sits on here, it's gonna kind of fight it. I've had this issue before where once I got the cap on, it kind of pushed the spade terminal off and then it wasn't reading over to the compressor and then the compressor wasn't kicking on. So we gotta kind of bend this a little bit, but you really wanna be careful. You don't wanna end up messing this up. So really try to get between those two and kind of press down just a bit. It doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to do 90 degrees, but just kind of get it. And then I'm gonna kind of fix this just a bit so it stays tight. So this little piece here, it's actually gonna be able to turn and we're gonna gently kind of shift it over because I want to get it to where I can have this wire sit pretty much flat. And then we're gonna get that on there. We may have to kind of adjust it a bit more, but really the key here is just to make sure that this isn't going to come off. And then we can kind of push our wiring back. We get a little test, make sure this is going to sit on there straight. And a little loose. I don't really like the equipment that they give to you. So if you have like a preferred spade terminal connector, go with that brand instead. But I'm gonna squeeze that down just to kind of get a little bit tighter on there. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and we'll put our cap back on. I'm gonna hand tighten that on for right now, and then we can come back with our socket. Tighten that down. And then I'm just going to take some of the zip ties that they give you in the kit, and we're going to kind of get our wiring up out of the way here, just so it's not sitting all loose. Just because how tight this is, I really can't get the hole big enough to stick in that little gasket that they give you. So I'm just going to take some gasket maker, and I'm going to try and protect the bottom here. I'm going to lift that up and just let it try and get in there, just so that it's not cutting the wires. And then we're going to go all around it as well. So this is a little bit messier, but just with the tightness, I don't want to take any chance at my drill coming through and actually poking and breaking that line. And this is also going to give it a nice watertight seal here instead. Our last step, we're going to just pop our panels back in place. We're going to leave the cover off for now because we do still need to check to make sure that our start capacitor is actually working correctly. But this is going to help kind of keep the airflow going down into the trailer so that we can actually feel it. So I'll pop this side panel back on. All right, so now we're going to go to our HVAC. So we got our bedroom AC, that's the one that we just did. So we'll turn that on. We want it on fan, and we want to run it on high. We're going to do that for just 1 minute. And once that minute's up, we can switch it over to AC. Now that we've let that run for a minute, we're going to switch this over to AC. So we're going to have it on cool, auto, and then we want to change the temperature all the way down to 55. And then once that kicks on, we're going to see lights flash in a right, left, center, left sequence, and then it should, after a little bit, switch from red to green. And that can usually take about 3 to 5 minutes. As you can see, we're sitting solid green, so we know that our soft start's working properly and it's good to go. All we'll have to do is slap our cover back on and we'll be good to go. Now that we've got our front AC all set up, we're going to just complete that same process over again with our second AC here on our main living area. Now that both soft starts are installed and we've tested them to make sure that everything's working correctly, that'll complete our installation of SoftStartRV's Soft Start for 2 AC setup here in our 2021 Keystone Raptor fifth wheel toy hauler. My name's Kevin. Thanks for watching.